As we all know, Toy Story is beloved by all. Not yet have I met someone who doesn't know what this franchise is and what it's about. And Toy Story 3 definitely seemed like the perfect way to cap off what would have been a perfect trilogy. Of course, we all know Pixar didn't stop there with Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5 very unfortunately on the way. God. But it still feels like the perfect ending to the original trilogy. Or as some people like to call it, the Andy Saga. And not only does it feel like an excellent conclusion, it's also the film with the most iconic moments, as I've mentioned before. Overall, this movie is just rightfully adored by kids and adults alike. For me personally, I don't think it quite tops 2, but it comes pretty close. So without further ado, here's why Toy Story 3 serves as well as an excellent follow-up as it does a finale. So it had been a full decade before Pixar finally greenlit Toy Story 3, which slowly became one of the most anticipated animated films of 2010. Many people young and old had grown up with this series that had heavily been engraved in pop culture and were very excited that our favorite characters would be coming back. This movie highly plays to the people who grew up with the first 2 movies. The over-the-top opening sequence stands out especially as we hear familiar lines of dialogue from the characters from the previous installments. We see this montage of Andy playing with his toys over the iconic song, "You've Got a Friend in Me," and it works very well because Andy represents us, the audience. The animators understood that many people had grown up with Toy Story for the longest time, and all these characters were just so universally beloved. So watching their lives in a short but wholesome montage with Andy is just pure nostalgia. Nostalgia obviously can't hold your movie alone, you can't excessively rely on it, but Toy Story 3 is probably the perfect example on how to use it right, aside from Spider-Man No Way Home. Because everything is linked back to the first 2 movies. It's why this film is still universally beloved today, and why Star Wars has been a dumpster fire over the last decade. Let's move on to the characters, which Toy Story has never failed to deliver. This franchise has always been able to introduce characters that are interesting, that you fall in love with instantly. Either through the story or through the choices they make, Pixar knows how to use them to the best of their abilities, and 3 is no exception in terms of this strength. It recognizes that people who were much younger when Toy Story first became an icon had grown up significantly and maybe see these characters a lot differently than before. I really like how the toys are portrayed here. I like how they're all afraid of what the future might hold for them now that Andy has unfortunately outgrown them. I like how they're all distraught at what to do now. I especially love how Andy plays a huge role in this film. I love that he's going to college now, that he's kind of torn up with what to do with his toys. I love that he wants to take Woody to college with him since he's been his favorite toy for the longest time. Along with seeing our fan favorites, we're introduced to a slew of new characters, from Bonnie's Toys to the Sunnyside crew. I've always been a fan of this movie's cast of characters, and because there's so many, it brings the film to like a much bigger scale, which works wonders for this franchise. Now let's talk about what Toy Story and Pixar have mostly been great at doing, and that's their villains. And I'm pretty sure it's not controversial to say that Lotso is easily the best Toy Story villain, and one of the best villains Pixar has ever made. His backstory is heartbreaking, and you almost feel sorry for him, but his behavior makes him overall a guy you never want to see redeemed in the end. Even after learning about his past, that doesn't excuse his actions toward Andy's toys, and even toward Big Baby, who had gone through the same experience as Lotso did. Lotso didn't care because he's that much of a manipulative and selfish person. Even when you think he might actually be redeemed, the film switches it around and shows his true colors again. Having a great villain gives the movie much higher stakes in the story, especially considering the second half of it plays as a prison escape movie. This style of storytelling really helps Lotso stand out as the absolute best villain of the franchise. Plus, I love prison escape movies, so there's that too. And of course, how could you talk about this movie without discussing the ending? Since the movie came out almost an entire decade after the first film, the audience that grew up with these movies grew up with Andy. He represents all of us walking away from the franchise that gave us so many fun and heartfelt moments. And because of that, the movie's just able to express extra emotion, as you can really feel that a lot of time has passed since Toy Story first became a hit. Like I said before, the animators recognized that the audience grew up with Toy Story for the longest time, and maintained the respect for the franchise and its characters. The ending is very sad, but satisfying, and it captures that importance of change and passing the torch from one person to another. And because of that, it's able to bring the original trilogy to a perfect close.
So long, partner.
Heaven knows anyone's life can stand a little of that.
What? I was wrong, okay? Crying's doing so good for me.
Now, I'm sure we can all agree that this was supposed to be the true end of the franchise, since it was our goodbye as much as it was Andy's. And I know we did eventually get Toy Story 4 9 years later, and the announcement of Toy Story freaking 5.
No, 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 no!
But at the time, we didn't know that. This is still technically the end of an era. A lot of people like to call the original trilogy the Andy Saga. Kind of similar to that of the MCU or Star Wars, just split into different parts. Toy Story is an ongoing adventure that has lasted for over 30 years, with characters we've laughed and cried with, and music we continue to sing over and over again. And Toy Story 3 hits almost all the right marks in terms of being one of the best animated films of all time, that I think works just as well as a continuation of the story as it does a series finale. It's a film that I never get tired of revisiting. It's amazing, you know it's amazing, it's Toy Story 3. What the heck else is there to say?